Hi, Victoria.
Hey girl.
How are you?
I'm great. I'm so honored to be on your podcast. I'm
Oh
so
my God,
excited.
stop, stop. The honor is all mine. I literally, like, when I was thinking about who I wanted to have on the podcast, you were like on the short list.
Thanks, girl.
100%. So I'm excited. This is going to be an amazing conversation. I think a great place to start is just kind of like with you and sort of where you are, where you started, and how you sort of came to this journey yourself.
Totally. So my journey really started a few years ago. I talk about on social media, I had been in abusive relationships my whole life. And I know I saw on your social media you were talking about like your dad being this like great example and like wonderful. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's so amazing." And for me, I didn't have that. And so my dad, my dad was really had a lot of issues and was in and out of jail, and my I had a lot of abusive relationships for a continuous time, just continually on, just I never really took a break. And then I hit a point where I just was so low that I was like, I'm done. Like I hit my rock bottom and I was like, I need to radically go back for myself. I need to radically build myself up. I need to quit all this other stuff I'm doing. I read a book called You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay, and it like changed my entire life because I had been coming to dating in a completely unconscious way and also thinking that I was a victim of circumstances. So I can relate to women who think, you know, abuse just happens to you. You can't control it. You can't filter or vet a man out of abusing you. I can understand that mindset because I once believed that. And once I stepped out of that and took full radical accountability for my life and started really doing this deep inner work, I saw how false that notion, that belief was. And that really started where I did this, as we were talking about, I did this 2 years of celibacy, and
Mm,
in those 2 years, I was really committing to myself. It wasn't just celibacy as in I wasn't talking or I wasn't having sex with anyone. I was not talking to any men. I was doing therapy 2 times a week. I moved to a different country. I didn't engage with anybody. Like I was alone, building myself up, becoming a sovereign woman, becoming built up on my own, fulfilling my own cup, coming into my own empowerment and really becoming this embodied, empowered woman. And then from that space, then I got into the beautiful relationship I'm in now. So that was kind of where my journey began.
the intentional singleness that you had, which is what I call it, because I did that
Yes.
for 5 years.
Mhm.
And it's hard for people to believe. Like, I'm like, I didn't even give my number out at all
Totally.
whatsoever. And it
Yep.
didn't matter who it was.
Yep.
It didn't, like, none of that mattered. It was just something that I was super intentional about.
Mhm.
But I think, like, it just so happened for you that at the end of this journey you have this like amazing relationship, right?
Yes.
But what I
Mhm.
hear from women all the time is like, well, I've been doing this for so long
Mhm.
and that relationship hasn't happened, right?
Yeah.
And I think something to think about is like the bearing on femininity and this outcome based mindset and this outcome based like way of behaving. Like,
Totally.
sort of what was that like for you in the middle of it? Because at the end of the 2 years it's like a different story, right?
Totally.
But like
Yeah.
in the middle of it, like what was that like for you?
Yeah. I think that exactly what you're saying. I think a lot of times women want something. They're still coming
Mm,
from their abandonment wounds. They're still
mm-hmm,
coming from this desire for a man to save them. They're still coming from this wounded space and they're like, I'm going to do A to get to B,
mm,
right? I'm going to get do A to get to B, but the B should be your own self-empowerment. You feeling so fulfilled on your own, that's the end goal, right? And so for me in that middle, kind of like you said, I wasn't concerned about getting a man, right?
mm-hmm,
I'm not engaging with anyone. I'm not giving out my number, nothing. And I am totally fine being this way for the next multiple years. So
mm,
I think that for women who have done it, been in this singleness for a long time, I would say I have heard from women saying, oh, I've been unintentionally celibate for 4 years, or I've been intentionally celibate for 4 years and nothing's happened, right? And I think that a lot of times people really aren't filling up their cup in that time. They're not
Mm,
really doing this deep inner work. And then because of that, they're just saying, I'm doing this. Why am I not getting this? Right. But
mm,
the
mhm,
doing, the celibacy, the singleness, the intentional singleness, as you called it, is a means to an end in itself. Do you know what I'm
mhm,
saying?
mhm,
And so
mhm,
I think that that aspect is really important. And then on top of that, within this container of celibacy and intentional singleness, becoming for me more feminine looked like me taking the time to heal my wounds. And something that I really, really am a proponent of is for women to see, am I not drawn to femininity because I'm just not, because I'm not a feminine dominant person? Or am I
mhm,
not drawn to femininity because I'm coming from these core wounds and I feel unsafe in the world? Or I have been living in the patriarchy, and because of that, I've put up all these walls. I feel that femininity is weak. I'm scared to claim my heart's desires, right? And so I think that that's a question that each woman needs to explore is, am I
mhm,
just not feminine, or am I just blocked off from my feminine because of these triggers or these traumas? And so
mhm,
for me, within my celibacy period, I began exploring that and creating this safe container for myself that I had never had before. And within this safe container that I created for myself, I could start rediscovering what femininity meant for me. And then
mhm,
from that space, I started realizing, wait, femininity is safe, which I never had thought
mm,
previously.
mhm,
And once I'm safe for myself, femininity is safe for me. And then from that
mm.
space, once I trust myself, which I created, then I can trust myself to be feminine with a man, right? And so it all comes back to kind of this self trust that you create.
I think just to piggyback off what you said, like for a lot of people who have this like knee jerk reaction that's negative to femininity,
Yeah.
what do you think some of the biggest, like, if you could simplify it, what do you think some of the biggest misconceptions are about femininity or this journey?
Yeah, I think that probably the biggest misconception around femininity is that people believe femininity is what the patriarchy told them femininity
Mm,
is, and it's not.
mm,
And so,
mm,
the same way that masculinity is not what the patriarchy is saying it is the same
yeah.
thing with femininity, right? We have this toxic masculinity. That's what, and we know that that's not real masculinity. Now, it's the
Mm,
same thing with femininity, right? The patriarchy created these two things that both don't resonate, and we don't like them both, right? Like, it's like, ah, no, that doesn't feel right to my body. But the
mm,
difference is that for women, we've just, instead of for men saying, oh, that's toxic masculinity, but masculinity in a healthy way is good, right? But for women, we say, oh no, femininity in its total, in its entirety is not good, but it's because we're believing this lie about what it is. And so I would say that even the lie is kind of around this um subservient woman, right? This woman who doesn't
mm,
speak her truth, this woman who puts herself last, who is really people pleasing. And all of that is actually the opposite of femininity, right? Like people pleasing and not speaking your truth and putting yourself last. All of these things are not what femininity is. They're what we have
mm,
been trained and conditioned to think femininity is. So it makes sense that people reject it, but that's not what femininity is. And so the real reclamation, the real empowerment is going back to the truth of what that actually is, because it was distorted. It was actually
mm,
taken from us, and it's an injustice that
mm,
it was taken from us. It was completely misconstrued. It was forced on us in this harmful way. And so when we can say, wait, no, that's not what it is, this is what it is, and I'm reclaiming that and I'm taking that back for myself because that's what's
mm.
most natural to me.
And so, what would you kind of say it is, right? Like, how would you describe it in really simple terms? And then, what would you say to someone who might have this preconception that, like, oh, I'm a lawyer, I'm like a doctor, I'm in finance, like I'm in this super male dominated industry, and I just can't see that working at work.
Totally. So the first question that you asked, which was, what is it? Kind of in simple terms. It's so hard to describe what femininity is, but something that I try to push it down to is in a healthy, embodied, and mature way, expressing and feeling. To me, that is a really good way of kind of just kind of putting it in simple terms, right? So most women, they don't feel safe to feel. They block themselves off from emotions. They suppress their true desires and their true wants. They're completely disconnected from their sexuality. They either go into hypersexuality or they go into this disconnection completely. There's no feeling at all. There's no, they're being hurt by men. They're putting on masks. They're thinking, I'm going to be the chill girl, which is again just not really feeling and expressing, right? So that's the distortion and the reversal of femininity, all of that, right? So femininity is being able in a mature and healthy way to express and to feel fully and to really be connected. Now there's other aspects of the feminine where there's the dark feminine, there's the light feminine, there's different archetypes of the feminine, there's the maiden, there's the mother, there's the crone, the wise woman, there's all these different aspects, and we can get into that as well, that have their own understandings, right? Their own kind of ways of being. And so, as a woman, when we're coming into this embodied femininity in a very deep sense, what we want is to be able to dance between these different archetypes and the different light and the dark. Now, what TikTok is saying dark femininity is not what dark femininity is.
Talk about it. Talk about it.
So,
Talk about it.
yes, so TikTok is hard. It's hard because they,
Yeah.
it's hard, so I was just posting about this on my Instagram. So what I was talking about was that there is a misconception that dark femininity is actually the wounded femininity. So anything that is people please, not even people pleasing, anything that's manipulative in any way, shape, or form is wounded femininity. It is not dark
A
femininity,
hundred
right?
percent.
And so
A
we
hundred
see these
percent.
yeah, we see on TikTok girls saying, access your dark feminine to kind of get this guy to do this and manipulate him into this. Now, no, you've just stepped out of femininity completely.
Mm,
Right. So if
mm.
you're trying to manipulate someone, if you're trying to get a man to do, something by manipulating him, or you're trying to use your sexuality to control a man, now you are completely out of femininity. It's just not what it is. So the dark feminine is really sensual, embodied in her eroticism. The dark feminine is in tune with her own death and life cycles. The dark feminine is wildly expressed, right? She's able to speak her truth. She's able to make all of these noises. She's in tune with her primal nature, right? There's this big aspect, this big real attention on the womb and kind of your cyclical nature if you have a womb, if you're a woman, right? So there's this focus on that aspect as well. The dark feminine is, you can think of, I gave this example I think the other day in one of my videos, was you can just think of a woman who is, menstruating and really into her in her essence and really feeling comfortable in her body, and she's wildly expressed and not uncomfortable with any aspect of herself, or she's very very expressed with her lover, not in a controlling way, not in a people pleasing way, not in a performance way, none of that,
Mm,
right? She's deeply in
mhm.
her body, she's vocal from her own authenticity. Now, being vocal, trying to copy what a porn star does or perform, is not this, right? So it's
Yes.
really deeply being in your authenticity as a woman. It's this more wild side. And I remember I said this wild and chaotic side. And someone was like, "Oh, I've had that before." And I'm like, "No, it's not when you're doing drugs and having sex with everyone, right?
Right.
That's not."
Right. Right. Right.
It's more
Right.
of this
Right.
beautiful embodied kind of chaos of these are my different emotions, but I'm grounded and I'm heart led.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that would be my description of dark femininity, but it's definitely not manipulating men or using your sexuality to gain something.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's like a couple key things that you touched on is that manipulation aspect
Yes.
dominates sort of the conversation on sites like TikTok
Yes.
because that's what's going to pull eyes, right? And there's
Yep.
something disingenuous about sort of the kind of content that people make
Yep.
because they know it's going to get pushed,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
And I think there's something to femininity, which I think a lot of people have misconstrued as weakness, and
Mm.
that is surrender. And I think
Mm.
that's
Yep.
such a key component of
Yes.
any healthy feminine life cycle and journey
Yes.
that people are so uncomfortable with because
Yes.
they, there's this need to control, right? Especially if you're
Yes.
coming from a background of fear, there's this need to control the outcome. But people need to understand that surrender is one of the best ways to kind of safeguard, against crossing the line between attachment to the outcome and
Mhm.
then when you're just in this like very manipulative space.
Mhm.
So can you kind of talk about like surrender, even in the lens through the lens of like your journey, what that meant going through a journey? Did you have a set amount of time? I know when I was on my like 5-year man fast at the beginning, I wasn't thinking this is going to be 5 years, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think that was like what allowed me to be incredibly present and surrender to the process is that it wasn't like I was like, okay, I'm going to do this for a set amount of time. I was like, I
Totally.
am going to do this until it's time to not do it anymore.
Yep, me too.
Right.
Mhm.
And for me, I came to that from a place of faith with a Christian background.
Mhm.
Um, but I think it's powerful to have this conversation with someone who that wasn't a religious journey,
Mhm.
because a lot of women are coming to celibacy not from a religious place. And
Totally.
I don't think that it has to be informed by a faith background in order to pay the dividends. I think the dividends can be constant across, a wide range of belief systems.
Totally. I completely agree. To touch on surrender, I think that surrender, like you said, is triggering for a lot of women because
Mm-hmm.
we have swung to another side of the pendulum, right? We were completely unable to have any control over our own lives, right? Prior to even a couple years ago, right? And so now as women, we're like, now I want to control everything, and anything
Mm,
that makes me feel out of control is I'm angry at, I'm triggered by, right? And so even just kind of to pivot a little bit in my relationship, I've been brought to so many more levels of surrender because once you get into a relationship with someone else, you start realizing all of the ways that you kind of try to control and you're trying to overstep. And so it's a continuous journey of surrendering when you feel that you trust what you're surrendering to. And so I think that that's another aspect where self trust is so important because even with God, right? So I trust God. So therefore my surrender is placed in a good place, right? I
mm,
trust
mm,
God enough to surrender, right? Now I
mm,
trust my boyfriend enough to surrender. Now that surrender doesn't mean that I'm never speaking my mind or this patriarchal idea of submission, which is different, right? And so this
mm,
surrender is different. And so I think it's triggering because when we say, "Oh, I'm surrendering in this really beautiful space," for women it goes back to, "Oh my god, I'm being controlled and I have to submit and I'm being abused." And that's just not what it is when it's in this really beautiful, mature space. And so
mm,
I think again, when you build this self trust with yourself by, for me, it was really deeply re regulating my nervous system. You can start realizing I trust myself to place
mm,
my surrender where it is going to be treated kindly and I'm going to be,
mm,
not rewarded, but I'm going to be protected in my surrender, right? And so
mm,
I think that surrendering as well to yourself and into your own emotions and into your own body, I think is another really big aspect of the feminine journey that I went on because part of my journey was really, really healing my sexuality. And when
mm,
I was healing my sexuality, I realized all of the ways I had been controlling and blocking off my true emotions, my true feelings, even in my own body. And so surrendering and being able to receive within the context of just my own self and being able to surrender to my true authentic feelings, even when they felt scary, and my true authentic self, even when it felt scary or overwhelming. I think that that's important, right? So surrender in so many different aspects is such a beautiful part of the feminine, and
mm,
I think a really misunderstood aspect of the
100%.
feminine. What do you think about
100%.
surrender?
Yeah, I think it's definitely one of the most, the branding on it is not the best as far as
Yeah.
what people, think about it. But I think the power in surrender is one, a level of peace, right? A
Yep.
level of peace that allows you to make decisions from a confident place, from a place of
Mm,
conviction
mm,
and discernment,
mhm,
right? Which I think is the most empowered place to make decisions from, because with conviction and discernment, you're not only taking in what you see, you're also taking in elements that are not seen at the time,
mm,
right? So you're making decisions that are more in alignment even with your future self
mm.
than where you are right now. I
Totally.
think that's one of the most important, empowering things about surrender. How I always describe it is that it's almost like a muscle. It's like, it's like it's something that you develop over time. People think of it as this passive thing, but surrender
Mhm.
is like an active,
Yep.
conscious decision
Mhm.
that you have to make over and over
Yes.
and over and over again. And I think, you brought up your boyfriend, which is perfect, because I think what people need to understand is that the extent to which you surrender to your feminine journey, right? Or
Mhm.
you surrender to this period of intentional singleness. Let's say you're like, I don't see myself on a feminine journey, but I'm open to the intentional singleness and celibacy. The extent to which you surrender to that
Mhm.
will influence and almost dictate like the quality of experiences that you have coming out of it, because
Yes.
it's not a finish line thing where it's like, all right, I did my femininity training, I'm good, I'm like,
Yes.
I'm a defined feminine,
Yes.
okay, I get into this relationship, right? I think
Yes.
what you find and this is something I haven't even gotten here with the content, because I don't think we're there yet.
Yeah.
I think there's a foundation that I think there's a foundation that needs to be, like as long as I
Mhm.
still getting comments about like, well, he's still going to cheat, he's still going to cheat. I
Yeah.
think we're not ready to
Mhm.
have that conversation.
Mhm. Totally.
Um,
Well, let's have it
but
now.
right, exactly. So I think like, you get into this relationship with someone, and one of the things that people, fail to understand about the best relationships, right? Like not
Mhm.
even like average relationships, the best
Totally.
relationships will force you to confront the parts of yourself
Mm.
that you were able to deny,
Mhm.
even in other relationships, right? Like
Yes. Mhm.
will force you to confront these parts of yourself when
Mhm.
you're with someone who loves you enough to say, babe, like
Mhm.
this
Yeah.
thing that you do is
Yeah.
not okay, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then it's like what it goes back to is, do I trust myself? Do I trust
Yeah.
the discernment and the conviction that I have? For me, it's, do I trust God
Mhm.
enough to say
Mhm.
that like I've been put here in this relationship with this person,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
part of what every relationship in your life, especially like the most intimate relationship you'll have, which is the one you'll have with your partner,
Mhm.
is meant to teach you and develop you and make you better,
Totally.
right? Do I trust God? Do I trust myself? Do I trust the process enough to know that if this person is in my life, one, I've made the right decision being here.
Mhm.
Two, the fact that I've made the right decision means that this is someone that I should learn from
Yeah.
just as much as he's like learning from me, right?
Totally. Mhm.
And I think that's something that's like, it's like, wait, like,
Yeah.
what do you
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yes.
learn from, like, what do you, wait,
Yes. Yes. I
right?
remember in the beginning of my relationship, I saw this quote and it like I was like, "Wow." It was so basic when I tell you, but it was it was literally this quote that said, "When you're in an argument with your partner, maybe say to yourself like maybe they have something good to say."
So
Yes.
many times you come into the argument, you're like, here we go. Like,
Yeah.
just finish talking so that I can like
Yes, right?
tell you,
Yes. Yeah.
right.
Yes, and so when you actually, like you said, get into a relationship with someone that you have used your discernment to choose and pick and vet, and now you have chosen this person and they have been put in your life by God and it is this beautiful union, now you have to surrender to that union and to the partner, right? And say, "Okay,
Mm,
maybe you have something good to say," right? And
mm,
so
mm,
I myself, I totally agree in my relationship. I can't even tell you how many times, there's been this refinement on both ends, right? But for me, from him towards me, right? Him refining me and saying, in this aspect, this is not okay, right? You're acting from these wounds here, and this is what's
Right,
happening,
right.
and it's difficult to hear, right? And even what you said when you were like, it feels like I should be able to be like, yeah, you have to do this, but when they tell me, it's like, and
Yeah.
so I had this, I just made a podcast about this the other day, like I think 2 days ago, and it drops this Saturday, about I made this caption and the girls did not like it. The girls were triggered.
Mm, mm.
The
Do you
girls were
wanna
triggered.
do you wanna quote it? You wanna quote the caption?
Yeah, so the caption do you know which one I'm talking about?
No, I don't. I'm
The
like racking
caption
my head right now.
the caption was "The man who made me a woman." So, the
Oh
girls were triggered. The
my
girls were triggered,
gosh.
and
Oh
so
my gosh.
and so
Ah,
yeah, so
that was
the
bold of you.
I know. I was
I
like,
love
I
it.
I knew I was gonna get that, and
I
I
love
did,
it.
right? And so the girls are I posted on Instagram and on TikTok, right? That little like new
Mm,
photo slide thing that they have. So I did the
mm,
photo slide. It was our 1 year anniversary the other day. So I made this little post right for our anniversary, and the caption was "The man who made me a woman," and it was from a
mm,
poem I had wrote to him that was called "The man who
mm,
made me a woman," right? And so for me, it was so interesting. I was using kind of all the girls in the comments. No, babe, you made yourself a woman. No, and whatnot. And so for me, I wanted to speak on it's hard to just kind of touch on it in a TikTok video. So I made a longer video or a longer podcast about it because what I was essentially saying is exactly what you just said, which is
mm,
when we understand, actually the issue is we don't understand that what we're currently doing as women is we're trying to make a boy who does not want to be a man. Right? We're trying to
mm,
initiate a man who's not wanting to. We're trying to change him, we're
mm.
trying to control him, and that's societally accepted, right? That's
Yep,
societally accepted, right? I
yep,
want to be codependent with this man. I'm trying to push him somewhere he doesn't want to go, which is
yeah.
just you. You're not, doing anything holy. You're just coming to a relationship in a codependent way. I've been there many times in an
Mm,
abusive relationship, trying to change and control and manipulate a man into something he is not asking for, he does not want, but you want, right? Because you are
mm,
coming from your own wounds. Now imagine this, I know you already know this, but society, right? When a man comes to you and
mhm,
he is so ready to go deeper into his own masculinity and his own manhood.
mm,
He's already done the work on his own, which was the case for my partner, right? He's already done the work on his own. He's super emotionally intelligent. He's an incredible man, but he knows that he needs that union to go deeper. Right.
mm,
And so I need a woman who can refine me and I want it. I
mm,
desire it. I'm ready for it. She gives me the feedback. I take it 10 steps further on my own, right?
mm,
Now
mm,
that is the union that what as a society we should strive to be in. But when it flips, and I think women are comfortable with that when you talk about that,
oh, oh
it's
yeah,
not super,
oh
it's not
yeah,
really like we don't really have it as women, but it's comfortable. Like, oh yeah, if a man wants to get initiated, of course women can initiate
100%,
men deeper,
yes.
right?
Mhm,
But on the flip, now we women don't like that, right? A woman who is ready to be initiated deeper into her womanhood and her femininity by a man and saying, "This man made me more of a woman. He brought me deeper into my femininity. He made me more of a woman. He initiated me deeper into my womanhood." And that's the truth. And we don't like that right now, right? Because
yeah,
again, it pushes us past our surrender, it pushes us past a point where we don't want to surrender. And then,
mm,
second, it pushes us past what you were talking about, which was this baseline of safety, right? We have
mm,
to even go in these depths of conversation. We have to have this baseline of safety as women. And right now in our society, we don't. Like you said, like
right,
I'm kind of just making these TikToks just as a baseline. Like I can't go into these other depths until we've accomplished this
yeah,
one first,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so it's hard to have these conversations because back up, we need women to just be able to vet a man to get into a good relationship,
oh
right?
my
And then
god, yeah, oh my god, and
so
yeah, what you said is so, like, oh, I mean, it's I'm just gonna go ahead and say, like, what you said we're not even going to touch it because we could spend hours unpacking that.
Mhm.
But I just
Mhm.
hope that like this is an episode that people will revisit, because what you just said is like so important and
Yeah.
so deep, that like it's a symbiotic
Yes.
relationship,
Yeah.
right? It's an exchange.
Mhm.
And if you trust in like that, in like in life, right, whether
Mhm.
or not that be religious, if you trust that there's order to
Mhm.
things,
Mhm.
you will trust that like his journey has prepared things in him that you
Yes.
are weak in
Yeah.
and he's strong in.
Yeah.
Likewise, your journey has prepared things in you that you are strong in and
Yes.
he's weak in. And
Exactly.
your assignment in life together
Mhm.
is to better one another, right?
Yes.
In such a
Yes.
way that once you bring life into this world, if that's something that you decide to do, now your children get to benefit
Mhm.
from two people, right,
Mhm.
who have come to a relationship whole. Because I always say, there's no such thing as my better half. It's 1 + 1 = 1. That's
Mhm.
the mystery of a union, right?
Totally.
That's like the beauty and the mystical and the metaphysical and spiritual um, aspect of a union, is that two whole people equal one person.
Yes.
And then through that exchange, you now get to bring people into this world who have the benefit of two people functioning at their highest level,
Yes. Mhm.
right? But
Mhm.
that's not happening
Yeah. Mhm.
most of the time,
Yeah.
because it's almost like it's stigmatized to say as a woman, this is what I learned from my man. This
Yeah.
is what my
Yeah.
man like taught me. This is
Mhm.
what, I taught my man, right? But like
Mhm.
it's a
Mhm.
two-way street.
Yeah.
And I think once you get to a point where, like you said, you've vetted this person,
Mhm.
I like every time my boyfriend talks to me, right? Like I'm kind of like patting myself on the back, like, oh wow, great choice. Like excellent decision.
Literally.
Like
Yes. Mhm.
excellent decision. There's
Mhm.
no, I mean, something
Yes.
as simple like I remember I had one post go really viral on Instagram, and I was getting a lot of negative um, feedback from Dusties, of course.
Yeah, of course.
And it was really aggravating for me because I hadn't said anything wrong. I hadn't attacked anyone or anything.
Yeah.
And so it kind of put me on edge to where I was kind of like, in future posts, kind of writing captions that were like insulting and like,
Yeah.
kind of like trying to shade the people who were,
Mhm.
trying to drag me.
Mhm.
And I remember I got on the phone with him and he was like, I just saw your caption. You're better than that.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think, I think it's something that you should change.
Yeah.
I don't think, because like you have to think about, you don't know who's following you, and you
Mhm.
don't want to say something directed at one person that
Yeah,
another person is going to feel hurt by, from a
totally.
place of like, wow, I look up to her. I love her content. I love her videos, but look at what she's just said and it
Yeah.
applies to me. And now you
Mhm.
hurt someone who you
Yeah.
never intended to hurt, right?
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
think,
When
there's
you
a
were
there's a
fine
version,
too.
right? There's a version of myself that's like, this is my social media
Yeah.
page. So first of all, like,
Don't
I've been
even
running this, before I met you, right?
literally,
There's a
yes.
part of you that would have said
Mhm.
that.
Totally, it wants to go into that space. Mhm.
Exactly. But it's
Mhm.
like, no, like, because when there's gonna be a time where I say, babe, like, come on, like, we're better than this,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
And there needs to be that exchange. And I
Mhm.
find that he's a lot better at sort of dealing with the opinions of others in the public eye. He's a lot
Mm.
better than me.
Mhm.
Um, and so it's just like I said, it's like his life journey has prepared him
Mhm.
for something that I need,
Yeah,
right?
totally,
That I
totally,
didn't know I would need, years ago, but that I
totally.
need. And
Mhm.
he's strong in that area. Likewise, my life has prepared me in ways that, like, he tends to be a little bit weaker.
Mhm, totally. Yeah, and my partner says this to me literally all the time. We talk about, you know, all these areas like you said that he is weak in, that I'm strong in, that I'm weak in, and that he's strong in. And in that way, we are able to complement one another and bring out the
Mm,
best in one another and refine the other. But
mm,
what women need to understand is that goes both ways. Like you said, like he's going to be refining you.
exactly.
The issue is that most women don't get into these good relationships, and so then it
Mm,
strengthens their attachment to the idea that no man should be able to tell you anything, or that no man will ever be, really what it is no man will ever be healthy or safe or strong enough and
mm,
emotionally intelligent enough to actually bring any value to your life. And a lot of
mm,
women have an attachment to that idea, and the issue is that when they continue to engage in these relationships from their own wounds, they continue to strengthen this idea, right? Because that's all they're seeing.
mm,
And so
mm,
then when women are not in that space, like you and I, and we're talking about this, it might just feel foreign, right? It's like
yeah,
totally foreign, right? Because you're like, what?
yeah.
My man is a piece of shit. Like, what?
Right,
He tries to tell
right,
me something, I like spit in his face. It's
right, exactly.
like he
No,
doesn't have.
exactly.
And so even like the other day I was talking about on TikTok, I just what did I do? I stitched it. I forgot the word. I stitched my boyfriend's video because my boyfriend he has more of an Instagram following, but he's a men's coach, and so
Mm,
he does all of this work with men and whatnot. And so I stitched one of his videos because he's I'm trying to get him into TikTok, and and so I just said, it's so important to respect the man that you're with. Like, I am proud of and
mm,
I respect my man's
mm,
opinions, his
mm.
who he is. And so what you said was, it resonated so much, and I loved hearing you say it when you were like, when he's speaking, I'm just like, I picked a good one. And so that feeling is so important, and it's foreign to most women. Most women, when they're engaging with their men, they're like, "Oh my god, I fucking picked a terrible one."
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
it's
and
hard,
yeah.
and then the magic happens once you're able to see, as I did, right? I was in that same space years ago, around 5 years ago. And I was in these relationships where I picked a bad one, and I didn't understand that I was picking a bad one. I didn't understand that I had agency in the vetting. I didn't understand that I was unconsciously choosing from my unconscious wounds. I didn't understand these dynamics that were at play. And once I
Mm,
did, and once I really committed to the inner work, like I said, everything changed. And so then you can get in these beautiful relationships where you deeply respect the man, and you can enter into these depths of intimacy, like we're talking about, that
mm,
are really beautiful and sacred and divine.
mm,
And really, like we said, but the first thing has to be your trust with yourself and the journey with yourself,
100%.
which goes
Yeah.
back to another point, not to just continue going on, but
No,
it goes
please.
back
Yeah, I
to
love it.
another point you were talking about, which was your surrender to that journey, right? And
Mm,
I was the same way. And I think it's so important to just touch upon what you said, which was surrendering to that journey of in your intentional singleness, as you called it. So
mm,
that celibacy
mm,
for me, which was intentional singleness, and
mm,
I surrendered to it. I didn't have an end date in mind. Like you said, it was
mm,
when I'm ready, and when God puts my man in my life, then I'm
mm,
ready, then I'm done. But until
mm,
then, I'm just doing me, and I'm surrendered to
mm,
where I'm at. I'm so
mm,
content with where I'm at. I could be here for the next 20 years and I could be okay. I'm
mm,
happy. I'm surrendered. If this is God's plan for me, that's okay. Right? I'm
mm.
happy. And so filling your own cup and surrendering to your own journey without trying to control again, right? I need to go celibate for 6 months so that I can get in this
Yeah.
great relationship like the girls are talking about
Mm,
online. Now you've
mm.
already taken a step back because you're doing something to get a man. We don't want to be in that space, right? If you're
Exactly,
trying to
exactly,
do something to get a man, it's not going to work. What you want to do is
exactly.
build yourself up as a woman, you know,
Mm,
build yourself up emotionally, financially. Just as a woman, build yourself up. Feel fulfilled in your life. Feel fulfilled in your solitude. Feel fulfilled in your sovereignty. Feel happy when you are on your own, in your own home, in your own apartment, going to bed at 9 o'clock. That was like
yeah.
the best. Like, it was
Yes.
great. Like, being by myself, going to bed early, working my
Mm.
job, coming back, making a little meal, and I was content and I was happy and I was doing the inner work. And so
Yeah.
another thing that I say to a lot of women is do as much as you can on your own. And I think a lot of women
Mm.
aren't honest with themselves, right? They are not honest that they have done everything they could possibly do on their own, right? I have filled my own cup. I feel fulfilled in myself. I have worked on myself. I've done the inner work. I've done all these things, right? And once you have done that,
Mm.
God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, for me, God will give you your next step because you're ready,
Yes.
right? So
Yep. Yep.
really intentionally commit to yourself again without this next step in mind. But the point is that you're not just going to, sometimes girls say, well, I've been celibate for 6 months. Where's my man?
Mm.
What do you mean? You didn't
Mm.
even do anything. You just been sitting in your house miserable. Just because you're not actually doing the act of
Yeah.
sex doesn't mean that you're actually
Yeah.
getting the benefits of celibacy.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
um,
Exactly.
my
And I think
moment.
that's such like a key and important point. And I think what you touched on was reminded me of on this journey of celibacy. I remember I was having a conversation in prayer, a back and forth with God, and I felt like I was receiving as I was
Yes.
talking,
Mhm.
and I was just kind of like, God, where is he?
Yeah,
Like, where
yeah,
is he?
yeah.
Right. And it was
Mhm.
a question that I had been asking over and over a period of time. It was like, where is he?
Yeah.
And what I received back is, what's your purpose in life?
Mm.
And I remember being like, I think we're not. Is
I
this
think
thing on? I don't think we're connecting. I asked you, where is my man? Like,
I don't
why
think
are
you
you
heard.
changing? Yeah, I don't think you heard me. I'm asking you, where's my man? Okay, like
Oh my
that's
gosh.
not. Why are you changing the topic? And this continued
Mhm,
where he was like, "What's your purpose?" Right.
mhm,
So I was like, "Okay, fine." I was like, "I'm a lawyer." Now where
mhm.
is he?
Yeah.
And what I got back is he was like, "That's your career.
Mm.
What is your purpose in
Yeah.
life?" And that sent me down a journey that, I mean, there's no way that I end up here practicing big law and making content for women
Mhm.
if I did not go on that journey,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm,
There's no way.
mhm.
Because then you understand that, like, there is a difference between your job and your purpose in life, right? Your
Totally.
purpose
Mhm.
is like, what are you put on earth to do? What is the unique
Totally.
problem on this earth that your life is meant to be a solution for?
Totally, yeah.
And I strongly believe that that is something you need to understand before you can get into a partnership that's going to be
Mm,
healthy and
mm,
long lasting, right?
mhm.
Because it's not like you don't look for a man. What you do is you live your life in the
Yes.
most authentic way possible, walking
Mhm,
in purpose. And every once in a while, you look around, right?
mhm.
And you look around for someone who's going in the same direction as you are.
Yes. Mhm.
That is like the best way
Totally.
to end up in a relationship. So then
Totally.
ultimately, I ended up with someone who, I mean, fits my purpose like you wouldn't believe.
Exactly,
But
yeah.
if you looked at my career, makes absolutely no sense at all whatsoever,
Mm, mm.
right?
Mhm,
And so if I hadn't come into that place of understanding,
mhm.
I would have picked someone based on my career. And
Yeah.
then 10 years, let's even say 3 years down the line, find out we should not be together
Totally.
because we're
Totally.
not a fit for the calling that I have in my life, which
Totally.
is more than just being an attorney, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And so I'm sure you had like a journey like that
I
yourself.
did, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's so beautiful. I love everything that you just said, especially about having a partner that complements your purpose, and also the aspect of the best way to really get a partner or to come into union, right, is when you're walking in your most embodied, purposeful
Yes.
self, and someone
Yes.
else who's also walking in a similar path, and you guys are going in the same direction. You guys are
Yeah.
like, oh, let's walk together. We're
Let's
both
walk
going there,
together.
right? And
Yes.
so
Yes.
that is pretty much also identical to my story as well.
Mm.
And so I just love everything you said. And even with my partner, I feel shocked sometimes at how well he complements my purpose, right? I feel like he's the
Mm.
male version of me. My purpose
Mm.
is doing this for women. He's on the flip side doing it exactly for men. We
Mm.
say are
Mm.
saying the same things, but he's saying it for men, I'm saying it for women. And like together, the power that we've like come into together, it's like we've
Yeah.
amplified like a million times,
I love
and
it. Yes.
it's so beautiful. So I totally agree. And I think that it's super important for women as well to understand the purpose aspect of it, which is that your purpose is one of the most holy and important aspects of your life.
Mm.
And your
Mm.
purpose doesn't need to look the same as our purposes, right? Your purpose can
Yeah.
be whatever the hell it is. Your purpose is your own, but knowing it
Mm.
and claiming it is very important. And I think that a
Mm.
lot of women are afraid to claim things as well. They're afraid to claim their heart's desires. They're afraid to claim what's really and true and authentic to them. And
Mm.
claiming your purpose and saying, this is why I was put on this earth, even if it's, I was put on this earth, I really feel I was put on this earth to be a mother and to nurture, my children. And that's what I really feel my purpose is. So therefore, I want to be clear on that. And I want to learn how to vet a man, and I want to learn how to do all this and that. And then maybe I can do something with, motherhood and so whatever the hell it is. Right.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
being clear on it and then flooring that lane. Right. And then
Mm.
from that space, finding a man that is, or allowing a man to find you who complements you.
Oh, yes. That part right there.
Literally,
That
right?
part right there. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, and I
Yep.
think side note, another aspect just off of the, allowing a man to find you is that women need to come back into that energy of being the
Yes.
chooser, of allowing a man to find you, right? My man
Mm.
is looking for me. And I remember similarly praying at the around the end of my celibacy journey, and I knew it was the end. I knew I had gone as far as I could.
Mm.
I was
Mm.
comfortable if that was what my plan was, to be celibate for the next 10 years. I was okay with that, but I intuitively knew it's done. My man is close. Where is he? Right? And I was praying
Mm.
similarly,
Mm.
where is he? I know he's,
Mm.
where is he? Like, I don't understand, but I need him now. Like, I need him.
Yeah.
I've come to the
Yeah.
point where I now need him. I'm ready for him. I've done as far as I can. The next step requires him, right? And
Mm.
so, and I remember on a different note, I had gotten kind of this message where, after, not in the prayer, but afterwards, that probably the next day, I realized I need to radically commit and protect my man before he's even here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.